In the mid-21st century, the planet was infested by a new type of pathogen after a failed military experiment. Initially, the army intended to use the pathogen, known as HGV, to create super soldiers, but instead, it transformed the infected into vampire-like beings. The victims were called hematophages, and in addition to their thirst for blood, they exhibited superhuman abilities. Therefore, the government instituted a tyrannical regime, forcing the infected to wear identifying armbands. It wasn't long before they were ostracized by the rest of the population, and over time, the infected were taken to isolation colonies. However, the current leader of the regime, Cardinal Ferdinand Daxis, initiated a cleansing process, destroying a large portion of the bloodsuckers. In the midst of this conflict, the young nurse Violet was expecting the birth of her first child. Unfortunately, at the hospital where she worked, a group of bloodsuckers attacked, eliminating everyone, including Violet's husband. Although she wasn't bitten, contact with the blood of the bloodsuckers infected Violet, and she ended up losing her child. She was then taken to an isolation colony, where she spent the next 12 years preparing her body and mind to seek revenge. Meanwhile, the infected have formed a resistance group and have begun attacking strategic government locations. Their latest attack is against a laboratory that stores blood banks for the study of blood-sucking organisms. In a surprise attack, 5 of the infected invade the laboratory using sphere-like transporters. The scientists try to escape, but the bloodsuckers eliminate them with a coordinated attack using their retractable swords. After that, the group heads towards the blood bank, but they are surrounded by regime soldiers who eliminate them with their weapons. The invasion was contained, but the military leader finds the action suspicious, as they wouldn't have been able to take the blood bank with only 5 people. However, he discovers too late that the intention was not to take the blood, but rather to infect more people. Because of this, when the leader goes to inspect one of the bodies, he ends up getting infected with the blood of the bloodsuckers, and without hesitation, the soldiers eliminate him with shots directly to the head. Realizing that the infected are becoming more dangerous, Cardinal Daxis orders the army to transport a new war machine. It was specifically developed to eliminate any trace of the pathogen, and in a short time, the bloodsuckers will be an extinct species. For this mission, the army summons a mercenary, codenamed XPD-154, who arrives at headquarters on her motorcycle. In addition to her combat skills, she utilizes advanced camouflage technology, allowing her to change the color of her hair, clothing, and eyes in seconds. Before beginning the mission, XPD-154 must undergo a series of tests to determine if her body is free of the pathogen. The first step is to collect blood samples, which are taken from her face, eyes, and wrists. Seeing that the wounds are not regenerating, they conclude that the mercenary was not infected. After the inspection is complete, XPD-154 is taken to a room where an agent hands her the briefcase containing the weapon against the infected. Meanwhile, outside the base, another agent appears on a motorcycle, introducing herself with the same codename, XPD-154. Initially, the security guards believe she is an imposter, but thanks to her identification card, the mercenary proves to be the real one. Suspecting an intrusion, the alarm is triggered, but before they can apprehend the intruder, she steals the briefcase and begins attacking the soldiers. It is then revealed that the imposter is Violet, sent by the bloodsuckers to steal the secret weapon. Thanks to her skills, she manages to disarm the soldiers easily, knocking them all to the ground with quick punches and kicks. More soldiers appear, and Violet picks up a weapon from the ground, but is unable to fire because of the safety lock. With no time to lose, she dismantles the weapon and uses its pieces as batons to take down the soldiers, one after another. After this confrontation, Violet begins to feel ill and uses a serum on herself to inoculate herself with the HGV pathogen. It was thanks to this that she managed to get past security, but it wasn't long before more agents were coming towards her. As soon as she recovered, Violet activated a device on her belt, which acts as a gravity leveler. With this ability, she is able to walk across the ceiling and shoot at the group of soldiers, who barely have a chance to react. Meanwhile, at the base's security center, the operators identify the intruder as Violet, the young nurse who became a lethal criminal after being infected. They try to contact her demanding her surrender, but Violet escapes with the briefcase, using the gravity device to flee through the ceiling. Reaching the top of the base, she is surrounded by soldiers, but despite their numbers, they are quickly eliminated by the woman's accurate shots. Finally, Violet jumps off the building and is about to escape on her motorcycle when more guards surround her, with guns pointed directly at her head. Unfortunately for the demented men, she makes a quick move, activating her retractable sword and eliminating them all in a few seconds. With the path clear, Violet sets off on her motorcycle and contacts Nerva, the leader of the resistance. She tells him she has recovered the briefcase, and the leader orders her to take it to the base without opening its contents under any circumstances. Violet obeys and continues through the city, but it doesn't take long for her to be pursued by police cars and military helicopters. Again, Violet needs to use the gravity leveler and begins climbing the buildings, piloting between the windows until she reaches the top. Upon arriving there, she continues to be pursued by one of the helicopters and is held at gunpoint. However, instead of retreating, Violet accelerates, and with a leap, she passes the helicopter, eliminating the crew with her weapons, and exits through the other side, crashing through the window of another building. With this maneuver, Violet manages to mislead the authorities and heads towards Nerva's base. On the way up the elevator, she disobeys the leader's order and opens the briefcase, but is surprised to find a child trapped in some kind of portal. Upon arriving at the meeting point, she confronts Nerva about it, and he explains that the child's body contains antibodies capable of fighting the pathogen. Through these antibodies, it will be possible to cure all those infected, and thus there will be no more blood-sucking parasites. Nerva doesn't intend to let that happen, and pulls out a gun to eliminate the young man, but Violet stops him, saying he's just a child. Furthermore, there's a chance to isolate the antibodies in his blood, and thus create a cure to distribute among those who want to become human again. Even so, Nerva doesn't want to take that risk, and tells Violet to leave, as she has already finished her work. As soon as she leaves, Nerva pulls the trigger on the boy, but in doing so, he ends up damaging a holographic device, revealing that it wasn't the real boy. It is then revealed that before entering the room, Violet had taken the boy out of the suitcase, and the two flee far away. However, upon leaving the building, Violet encounters a Chinese mafia group, who already know about the boy, and they demand that she hand him over. Violet refuses and becomes the target of the entire gang, until one of them pulls the trigger in her direction. The problem is that with her speed, the criminal dodges the bullet, and the projectile goes straight into the gang leader's head. A shootout begins in the building, only for Violet to dodge the bullets, causing the demented individuals to shoot themselves. With everyone neutralized, she continues her escape with the boy, but as the two are getting into a car, their path is blocked by a military convoy. Violet quickly puts the boy in the car and the two hide, while the group of soldiers pulls the trigger on them. This seems to be the end, until the shooting stops, and Cardinal Daxus emerges from inside the convoy, demanding that the child be handed over. He claims the boy is his son, and with his help, he intends to develop a cure capable of turning all bloodsuckers back into humans. He knows Violet wants this and asks for her help to take him to the ministry, but she suspects the Cardinal's intentions and flees by car with the child. Once they've gotten some distance, Violet leaves the vehicle and heads to the subway station to throw off the authorities. After taking a train, the two arrive at the next station, but it's teeming with regime soldiers. Violet does her best to avoid drawing attention and contacts Garth, a bloodsucker scientist and her ally. After explaining the situation, he agrees to help her, and Violet leaves with him to the lab to discover how to synthesize the cure using her blood. Along the way, she asks the boy his name, and he makes a gesture with his hands, indicating the number 6. Finally, they find Garth's hideout, and the scientist takes a sample of the boy's blood so he can analyze it in detail. Far away, at the regime's ministry, Nerva and his henchmen storm the place, determined to confront the Cardinal directly. They soon find him in a corridor, and Daxus orders his men to eliminate the invaders, but Nerva is faster and shoots the ceiling lights. The entire corridor goes dark, and when the emergency flashlights come on, Daxus sees all his men lying lifeless on the floor. The Cardinal then retreats to another room, followed by Nerva and his group, who prepare to put an end to the regime's leader. However, Daxus is not intimidated, and before they can grab their weapons, he shoots the 3 henchmen, leaving only Nerva. The bloodsucker is surprised by his agility, but the Cardinal does not intend to eliminate him and proposes a deal. Meanwhile, in Garth's lab, he finishes analyzing SIG's blood, but finds no antibodies against the HGV pathogen. Instead, there is some kind of chemical compound that, in addition to acting as a tracer, emits radioactive energy. Garth believes that if this compound isn't extracted somehow, the boy will die in just under 8 hours. Faced with this dilemma, the scientist advises Violet to abandon 6, because otherwise, the regime will continue to pursue them. However, she refuses to abandon him, as he reminds her of the son she could have had in the past. For this reason, the following morning, Violet says goodbye to Garth and heads through the city, seeking help for 6. The two arrive at a shopping mall, and Violet contacts Garth, but realizes her phone is being tapped. Unable to call for help, she leaves the device behind and goes into the mall to buy some food. However, 6 realizes what is happening and tells Violet to run away, because as long as they are together, the regime's soldiers will continue to search for him. Seeing no other way out, she agrees, but before leaving, she gives the boy some money. Finally, Violet leaves, but on the way, she is overcome with guilt and decides to go back to get the boy. At that same moment, more soldiers appear, and seconds later, the sounds of gunfire are heard. Violet is distraught and runs to see what happened, but instead of 6, she sees another boy, who was cowardly eliminated by the soldiers. She tries to maintain her disguise and searches for 6 until she sees a half-open door near where she left the boy. As Violet passes by, she encounters 6 again, but soon after, the boy is captured by Nerva, who is now in the service of the Cardinal. He then leaves taking 6, and Violet goes after him until she arrives at a cemetery. At the location, 2 bloodsuckers await her, saying they are also in the Cardinal's service. They claim to be as strong and fast as Violet, but she is undeterred and challenges them both to a fight. The first one lunges at her, but Violet dodges the attack, pulls the madman's hair to immobilize him, and knocks him to the ground with a spinning kick. The second one advances towards her, but Violet easily dodges and kicks him, tearing chunks of the man's hair off. After this, Violet enters a mausoleum, where she finds Nerva and a group of bloodsuckers waiting for her. The man leaves 6 hanging above a well and warns Violet that she is risking her life for nothing. Nerva reveals that, according to the Cardinal, the boy doesn't have antibodies against blood-sucking insects, but rather against humans. Therefore, the cure Violet so desperately wants doesn't exist, but she still says she will save the boy anyway. Then, with her retractable blade, Violet challenges everyone to a confrontation, and Nerva orders his men to finish her off. Just like she did at the military base, Violet spins her body, and with a precise movement, eliminates everyone in just 1 second. Despite this, Nerva sends more men into the confrontation and releases the rope from the well, causing 6 to begin to fall. Seeing that she has only seconds to save the boy, Violet charges at the other swordsman, delivering precise blows with her blade. 2 of the henchmen try to attack her together, but Violet jumps, and the madmen lock their blades into each other. Finally, only Nerva remains, who tries to face Violet, but the woman is more skilled, and after blocking his attack, she retaliates by driving her sword into his chin. Finally, she grabs the rope to save 6, and even with her hand burning from the friction, she doesn't let go and manages to hold on with her strength. The boy is safe, but Violet is exhausted after all the effort in the battle. However, there is no time to lose, and she needs to save 6, even if it means asking the Cardinal himself for help. Using a communicator, she contacts Daxus and asks for his help to save her son. However, the man reveals that the boy is actually one of his clones, created to put his plan for world domination into practice. He then orders Violet to bring 6 to the Ministry, promising that she will have a chance to get her long-awaited cure. Violet then goes to the location, and there she encounters the Cardinal, along with 700 armed soldiers. She once again asks Daxus to save the boy, but he says that this will not be possible, as he needs the boy's body to eliminate not only the bloodsuckers, but all of humanity. Violet asks what his intentions are, and Daxus replies that the bloodsuckers are no longer a threat. They are practically extinct, and now it is humanity that needs to be controlled. Because of this, he created clones to develop a compound capable of eliminating all human beings. Those who wish to survive will have to swear allegiance to the Ministry, or they will suffer the same fate as the bloodsuckers. After revealing his plan, Daxus once again demands the boy back, but Violet resists and draws her sword to confront him. At that same instant, the Cardinal orders his men to fire, and they all unload their weapons on Violet, who apparently suffers no damage. After the ceasefire, Daxus goes to Violet, only to discover it was just a hologram attached to her car. Far away, the real Violet observes everything and realizes that even with her abilities, she wouldn't have been able to defeat the army in a direct confrontation. With 6 having little time left to live, she decides to enjoy a moment of fun with the boy, who, throughout his life, has been used as a guinea pig. However, the two are interrupted by Daxus and his men, who locate them and prepare to take the boy away. Sadly, 6's time is up and the boy is eliminated in front of everyone. Violet laments not being able to save him, and doesn't even try to resist, simply accepting defeat, and soon after, she is hit by Daxus's shots. With the criminal eliminated, the Cardinal orders his men to take the boy's body, as there might be a chance of extracting the compound. As for Violet, Daxus orders that no trace of her be left, and commands his men to incinerate her body. However, hours later, Violet wakes up in Garth's lab, who posed as one of the incinerators and secretly took her body. Despite this, she laments being brought back, as she believed that only by ending her life would she be free from all the suffering she endured. Violet then leaves, and in the middle of the night, she considers ending it all once and for all. However, she receives a call from Garth asking her to turn on the TV, as the news is broadcasting new information about Six. Before his last breath, the boy made notes on a piece of paper and left it for Violet, but he couldn't deliver it in time. In those notes was a formula about the HGV pathogen, which may be the key to finding the true cure for hematophagia. Garth believes he can replicate the formula and cure Violet, but she refuses because she still needs her powers for one last mission. The following morning, Violet heads towards the Ministry, believing that Six may still be alive. She intends to invade the place and bring him back, even if she has to fight against the entire regime's army. At the Ministry, Violet enters through the front door and demands to know Daxus's whereabouts, with the building's detector picking up several weapons hidden in her suit. As expected, the guards on site rush to confront her, but she eliminates them all with her trusty blade. Meanwhile, Daxus keeps Cease's body in preservation and is about to collect her blood when he receives an emergency call. Through the security cameras, he discovers that Violet is still alive, and mobilizes the entire team to eliminate her once and for all. Shortly after, the criminal reaches a corridor where she encounters a group of masked men armed with swords. Without hesitation, she confronts them all at once, blocking their attacks with her blade and countering with swift movements. With only one remaining, the man tries to resist, but Violet grips a piece of one of the blades in her hands, and as she pins him to the ground, she finishes him off. Violet emerged victorious from the battle, but the blade cut her hand, causing her to bleed profusely. This blood also affects her clothes, which begin to turn red, but despite this, she continues on to find Daxus. More soldiers appear, only to be eliminated by Violet's blade, who continues her search for Six. Finally, she reaches the Cardinal's room, who is surprised by her determination but informs her that the boy is no longer alive. However, Violet doesn't believe that, and orders him to draw his weapon, as she won't face him unarmed. The man then pulls out a pistol, which fires jets of fire, one of the greatest weaknesses of bloodsuckers. Violet responds by drawing her blade, but instead of attacking, she uses it to spread the blood from her hands, striking Daxus's face. With this, she manages to infect the Cardinal, who now possesses abilities similar to her own. With the two on equal footing, Daxus draws a serrated sword and challenges her to a final duel, where they will decide the boy's fate. A fierce battle begins, with the adversaries unleashing attacks at superhuman speed. With their opponents evenly matched, Daxus tries another strategy and closes the roof vents of the room, plunging it into complete darkness. However, Violet responds by setting her sword ablaze, and the two clash again, with Daxus's blade also engulfed in flames. The battle intensifies, and the Cardinal begins to gain the upper hand, but in a surprise attack, Violet seizes his weapon. She then fires a blast at Daxus, who, his body engulfed in flames, panics and attempts to attack his opponent. However, Violet manages to disarm him, and then delivers one last blow with her sword, cutting the Cardinal in half. Finally, the battle is over, and Violet takes Six's body out of the room, and as she expected, the boy wakes up. Violet is happy about this, but she has lost a lot of blood and is getting weaker and weaker. This time, Six decides to repay her for everything she has done and helps her escape the Ministry, where Garth is waiting for them. Thanks to Violet, the regime suffered a terrible blow, and with Garth's help, she intends to find a cure for hematophagy. However, she knows that someone will soon come to take the Cardinal's place, and so she decides to keep her powers until she finally puts an end to this totalitarian regime. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.